Ms. Deutman, will you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell both your first and last name?
Susan Deutman. Susan is S-U-S-A-N, and Deutman is D-E-T-H-M-A-N.
Ms. Deutman, how are you related to Collin Griffith?
I'm his maternal grandmother.
So your daughter was Kathy Griffin?
Yes, ma'am.
Griffith, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So give the jury a little bit of an idea of who the other members of your family are. Who was Kathy's father?
Robert Baines.
Were you married at some point to Robert Baines?
Yes, we were married for 19 years.
When did you divorce?
We divorced in 1998.
After you divorced Robert Baines, did you get remarried?
Yes, I did.
Who did you get remarried to?
Inaki Markovich.
Okay. And might need to spell that last name for the court report.
M-A-R-K-E-V-I-T-C-H.
Ms. Deutman, who are your children from your marriage to Robert Baines?
John Paul Valantis, Kathy Valantis Griffith, and Christy Valantis Rooney.
Did you list them in ascending order of age, youngest to oldest?
The youngest to oldest.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have another child?
Yes, I do.
Who is that?
Kevin Markovich.
And that's from your marriage to Mr. Markovich?
Yes.
Now, Kathy, obviously Collin was Kathy's son. Did she have any other children?
Yes, she had an older son. He's still alive, Christopher Ray Griffith.
How old is he?
He is 24.
I want to ask you a few questions about Robert Baines, your ex-husband. When you divorced in 1998, who got custody of your 3 children with him?
I did.
And since 1998, has Robert Baines been a big part of your life?
No, except for the custody battles we went through.
What about, are you aware of his relationship with any of the 3 children that you had with him?
He didn't have a relationship once he was not granted custody of John Paul. He didn't want Kathy, considered Kathy to be damaged goods. He only sued for John Paul.
Okay, but what was his relationship like with his children after the divorce?
He didn't have a relationship at all until Kathy divorced and she reached out to her dad.
When did Kathy divorce her husband and the father of Collin and Christopher?
2019, if I remember correctly. It was like December of 2019 when they filed. And I think it took a couple months for the divorce to actually take place.
Okay. Now, we saw pictures of Robert Baines on a trip with Kathy.
Yes.
Tell the jury about that trip, what you know about it.
So Kathy wanted to meet the biological Robert's mother, the biological grandmother, because Kathy had many medical problems. So she asked me, she said, Dad said he'll take me to California to meet his mom. They lived in Anaheim. The mom lived in Anaheim, California, but you'll have to pay for it. And I said, okay. I said, just please try not to do anything too expensive. And I'll see what points I can use for the hotels. And fly over there. You guys don't need a rent-a-car. You can use your dad's car if it can make it to California. If not, then we'll get a rental car.
So, Ms. Deutman, did you in fact pay for Kathy to go on this trip with Robert Baines?
Yes. I paid for all the food, all the hotels, Disneyland, all of that.
And when was that trip?
That was before she got Collin back.
So before 2023?
Yes.
After 2019, though?
And after COVID was over with.
Okay.
So I believe it was 2022.
Are you aware of any other trips like that Robert took with his other two children?
No. He didn't really have communication with them.
All right. So I want to ask about Kathy's funeral or celebration of life. Did the family hold such a thing for Kathy?
Yes, we had a celebration of life right here at the funeral home in Lakeland.
Was she actually buried or was she cremated?
No, she was cremated. She had conveyed to me as well as to her sister and brothers that she never wanted to be put in the ground. She wanted to be cremated and later taken back to the ocean in Key Largo and her ashes be put at the Jesus statue that we have under the water in Key Largo.
Has that been done?
No, we're going to do that this summer.
Where are Kathy's ashes right now?
Right now, they're at Christie's house.
Was Robert Willantis invited to the celebration of life?
No, he was not.
Why not?
Robert tends to be very disruptive. He has difficulty with truthful manners, and we just did not want to have more lies and destruction. The final time that we could say goodbye to Kathy.
I'm going to ask you some questions now that may also be difficult. In the last roughly 2 months before Kathy died, what personal medical things were you going through?
So in the last part of June, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. I had to have part of my colon removed and an ostomy put in place.
After you were diagnosed and had your surgery, did you have a fight with Kathy over Robert Willantis?
Yes, I did. Kathy was very adamant that she wanted Robert to take care of me, that I needed to pay for his flight from New Mexico to Lakeland, get a hotel for him for 2 weeks, and get some sort of a car, and even pay for his food. And I told Kathy, I said, that's ridiculous. He hates me. I don't want to be hurt by him. Plus, he has lost his nursing license. I want a real nurse that has...
Okay, hold on.
I'm going to just object to all this collateral accusations sustained.
Ms. Deutman, as a result of you not wanting to follow Kathy's wishes as far as Robert Willantis coming here and taking care of you, did that cause a break in communication between you and Kathy?
Yes, she refused to talk to me. She blocked my phone. She told me if I came over to the house, she would have me arrested for trespassing. She said, you can contact Collin, but you can't contact me.
And that, okay, I'll move on from this. Mr. Willantis on the stand mentioned that Kathy got Collin a second phone and that must have been what Collin used to talk with Mr. Willantis on the phone every week or every other week. Tell the jury what you know about a second phone.
The second phone, I purchased a second phone when Collin came to live with me in the January, February time period, the first time she threw him out. And I couldn't leave a kid in the double wide by himself without a phone. Plus, since I didn't
Wait,
live...
hold on. Why didn't Collin have a phone with him when he went to live with you in January of 2024?
Because Collin and I were at the Mexican restaurant in Port Charlotte. Kathy and Collin and I were supposed to go. When I got there, Kathy said, no, I don't want to go. And I said, come on, at least have some nachos or something. No, I don't want to go. And I said, can I take Collin with me? Sure. So while we were at the Mexican restaurant, she called me and she said, don't bring Collin back. I never want to see you or Collin again.
And the phone that Collin had at that point, where was it?
It was at Kathy's house.
Okay, so you brought Collin to
the double wide in Arvindale, and I didn't even have internet because, of course, I wasn't there all the time. So if I needed to, I'd hotspot my computer. I didn't want an extra expense for internet or cable or any of that. And so I realized I couldn't leave Collin here without a phone. So I told him, I said, we're going to have to go up to AT&T and get a phone for you. And I even got a 786 area code because that's the area code that I have in the keys.
And that second phone, did Collin have possession of it from January of 2024 all the way up until September of 2024?
No. He only had possession of it for that small amount of time from when he came to, which would have been, it was either the end of January, the beginning of February. He had possession of it there, and then when he left, he took it, and I immediately got it by that weekend.
Okay, I'm actually going to show you what's been marked as defense exhibit number 16 and see if you recognize it. Look at that and see if you recognize those messages from January 2020.
Well,
What, do you recognize those?
according to this... Okay.
Don't read
No.
it. Do you recognize those messages
No.
between you and Kathy?
No.
Okay. Do you remember there being a period in January of 2024 where where Collin was with you for several weeks and Kathy didn't remember that he had gone with you?
Yes.
And do you know what was going on with Kathy at that time?
She was suicidal, taking pills. She just didn't want to have her life. She was drinking
Okay.
excessively. She drank Everclear as her alcoholic choice.
Okay, Ms. Detman, just answer the questions, okay?
Yes.
You mentioned that she was suicidal in January. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 15. recognize the subject matter of those texts.
Yes.
Judge would like to admit defense exhibit number 15 into evidence.
Objection?
No objection, Judge.
And received.
Ms. Deutman, defense exhibit 16, dated February 5th of 2024, and the blue text at the top was Kathy's number 941-258-0963,
Yes.
and were you the number below that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you mentioned a 786 number, but you had two phones, correct?
Yes.
Why did you have two phones?
I use one for work and one for personal.
So the blue message on top talks about Kathy just having been released from the ER for an accidental overdose. Was that one of the times that she had had a suicide attempt?
Yes.
So the phone that you bought for Collin in either January or February of 2024, and I'm sorry if you already answered this, but he didn't keep that after the brief period that he lived with you then, did he?
He went home with it and I had it back on the weekend.
Okay, so shortly after he went back home to Kathy.
Yes.
So Kathy, it sounds like off and on had estrangement from various family members.
Yes.
You mentioned that you and she didn't speak for quite some time after your cancer diagnosis. Had she cut other members of the family off at other times in her life?
Her and John Paul were not speaking.
Do you know why?
Yes. She got mad at his wife because the house wasn't clean to her standard. And she said, I'm going to call DHS, which in our state is Child Protective Services, that Isabella was not taken care of, that she was in danger, something. I know DHS ended coming up to John Wolantis' house. Of course, the investigation proved that there wasn't a problem, and John just said, I will never have anything to do with her again. She crossed the line.
Any other family estrangements from Kathy besides you and her brother John?
So Kevin and Kathy were supposed to go to Washington, D.C. together.
Kevin is your son with
Yes, and Kevin
Inaki.
and Kathy were pretty close. They were supposed to go to Washington, D.C. together because Kevin was in officer basic training in Virginia for the Florida National Guard. He just graduated from college, and he had time off during the 4th of July. And Kathy said, it'd be great if Collin and I could meet up with Jean Paul in Washington, D.C.
Do you mean Kevin or?
Kevin, I'm sorry, Kevin would meet up. I was supposed to go because, of course, my cancer, I
Okay.
couldn't.
Miss Volantis, I'm sorry. I know you're nervous, but the estrangement,
Yes.
how that
So what
occurred.
happened is Kathy contacted Kevin and said, unless you help me get your father arrested, meaning Inaki Markovich, I don't want you coming to Washington, D.C. with me.
Do you know what Kathy was referring to as far as helping her get your husband arrested?
Yes, they had had an altercation in our farm in Arcadia during COVID, so it was during 2020, around Easter time. It was before Easter. She threatened him with a baseball bat, and she said she was going to get her gun and shoot him. And my husband brought a shotgun out and said, I have a shotgun here. We're not going to be doing this. And later, she said that he used the shotgun, fired the shotgun. And I said, it was a double wide. I think I would know if a shotgun had been fired in the ceiling in a double wide.
Okay. So after that interaction between Kathy and Kevin, were they estranged from each other for a while? But it sounds like she would kind of change her mind about who she was close with or wanted to have communication with. Is that?
Yes, because she called Kevin the next day and said, I'm sorry, come on to Washington, D.C. with us. And Kevin said, I already told my cadre, my leave's been canceled.
Okay. Are you aware of threats that Kathy had made to commit suicide?
Yes.
How many are you aware of, if you know?
I'm aware of 5.
Okay.
No, 6.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 14. See if you recognize this.
Yes, I do.
I'd like to admit Defense Exhibit 14 into evidence, please.
Objection.
No objection, Judge.
Be received.
What is this exhibit?
I wasn't sure, if Kathy showed that to me, I wasn't sure if it was blood or a magic marker because I didn't see it physically. She said that it had something to do with a song she was listening to, and she was upset because of the divorce.
And you can't quite see it now, but did you see a video of, so you can see the triangle for play. Had you seen the actual video of this?
Yes.
In it, can you see what's written on the left side of Kathy's arm? I mean, you can't see it right now, but do you remember what it said?
I don't remember what it said because it was just so horrific that that she was doing this to herself.
I'm coming up here, so don't forget to give it to the clerk. Have you actually called law enforcement on occasion when Kathy made suicidal statements to you?
Yes.
All right, so you said you know of about 6 threats. What about actual attempts by Kathy to kill herself? Or was that the 6 and I misunderstood?
Those were the 6 attempts.
Okay. Can you describe some of those for the jury?
Yes. So the first one was, well, she was still married and she was very upset and she had overdosed on her trazodone. And she told me, I was in Key Largo and she lived in Key Largo at the time. And I said, I'm going to have to take you in right now to emergency room. You're going to die. And she said, no, I'm not
Okay,
going in it.
Ms. Detman, it's okay. You don't have to give all of those
Okay, I'm
details.
sorry.
That's all right. I understand. So that was one attempt. What about other attempts that you were aware of?
So the second attempt was when she was in Port Charlotte. I had to go over the fence and open the sliding glass door, and she was in her bed, all dressed in black, and with a revolver in her hand.
And had she done anything with any medications that
Yes,
time?
she had overdosed on the oxycodone.
Did she end up going to the hospital that time?
Yes.
Any other attempts that you remember?
Yes. There was another attempt with oxycodone again, about 4 months later. Then there was an attempt with medication and Everclear. The second attempt, she went back to the emergency room and was admitted, Baker active. The third time, when I called Port Charlotte Police, they got there and said, she appears fine to me. If she wants to drink in her own house, that there's nothing we can do. And then the most recent time was just in August of this year, August 21st. She called me and said she had overdosed on metoprolol, her heart and blood pressure medication, because the other ones didn't work. So she said, I did that, and I said, have Collin take you to the ER. No, I don't want to go. Have Collin take you. Finally, I talked Collin into taking her to the emergency room.
So, to your knowledge, Collin was home when she overdosed and actually had to drive her to the
Yes.
emergency room
Yes.
in August of 2024.
Yes.
You mentioned that Kathy had been Baker acted. Was that more than one time?
Yes.
The jury has heard a lot about some things that Kathy claimed that were maybe not true. How would you describe Kathy's reliability or her reputation for truthfulness?
Objection, Your Honor.
Judge, can we go sidebar? Ms. Detman, I'm going to go through some individual things and ask you about them, okay? First, I'm going to approach with defense exhibit number 17 as it's been marked. Just read it and see if you recognize it as being a text from Kathy to you. Do you recognize?
Yes, I do.
I'd ask that defense exhibit number 17 be admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
It is received.
In this text from June 27th of 2024, Kathy says that she was here and pressing charges going to 77 Hewlett Drive. That's your address, correct?
That was the address in Auburndale.
Okay. To check on you and to pick up Inaki for charges of attempted murder and assault against you, meaning she's claiming that Inaki actually tried to murder you, correct?
Yes.
Is that true?
No, he's never tried to murder me.
So that's something that Kathy threatened and claimed that just simply wasn't true, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Has she done that on other occasions, make things up?
Yes. Yes. She made up that I was diagnosed with Lynch disease, which is it's an auto-recessive disorder where people have to have, they're more prone to cancer. So she said that her insurance company was forcing her to have a hysterectomy because of that. She also told Christy, and Christy was so distraught.
Okay, Ms. Detman, I'm
sorry.
sorry. No, it's okay. I understand. So she made up that you had a disease that you do not in fact have.
No, I verified with my oncologist that I didn't have.
She also made up that John Paul Volantis had been neglecting his child, right?
Yes.
Has she ever made anything up about Robert Volantis?
Yes.
What did she make up about Robert Volantis?
When she was younger, she said that Robert raped her.
And how do you know that that's not true?
It went to court,
Okay.
so I don't know. I only...
Did she ever tell you that she had made it up?
Oh, yes. Later, as an adult, she told me she had made that up.
Did she say why she made it up?
Yes, because she was mad at the situation between Robert and I.
Okay. Has she ever made anything up about her being responsible for everybody else's successes in the family?
Yes. She went as far to say that no one in the family would have any of their degrees, and that she, in fact, the only reason that I got my doctorate was because of her.
Okay. And did she actually make a threat to you regarding this
Yes,
belief
she
she
did.
had?
She said she was going to, when she was mad at me one time, she said she was going to contact the university where I work at, and I said, go right ahead. No, I had to.
What did she tell you she was going to
She said
say
she's
to
going
them?
to call the university, my dean, and tell him that she did all of my coursework and that I didn't do anything and that I was a phony.
Did she make up at any time that you're aware of that Collin was failing school?
Yes, she said that he had been failing school and that when he was staying at my house, that it was my fault because I wasn't observing him on the computer to make sure he was doing his work.
Was Collin ever failing to your knowledge?
No.
When did Collin graduate from high school?
He graduated last June.
Was that actually ahead of schedule?
Yes, that was a year ahead of schedule.
And did he, in addition to graduating early, did he ever, did he get college credit?
Yes.
At the same time?
He was dually enrolled in college.
You mentioned earlier that you had paid for some trips, the trip for Kathy to go visit Robert Volantis and meet his mother.
Mm-hmm.
Did you pay for other trips for Kathy?
Yes. The cruises that they went on, I paid for.
And the other trips that the jury has seen pictures of Kathy and Collin, who paid for all of those trips?
I did.
Did you also have, you mentioned points and using points for things.
That's our DVC, our Disney Vacation Club, as well as I have points through Hilton Honors.
Have you ever witnessed Kathy not being able to control her temper?
Yes.
Can you describe some of those
Yes.
times?
She went at.
Your Honor, if we may approach for a moment. Another sidebar, the headset that Mr. Griffith is using is on mute somehow. I can't figure out how to unmute it. It doesn't appear to have any buttons on it at all, but I may not just know how it works. It indicates that it's on mute. It has like a little, that's the one I've been using.
All right, members of the jury, I'm going to ask that you step into the jury room for just a few moments while I discuss a matter with the lawyers. We'll be with you as soon as we're done.
All rise, please.
for reputation, there are two instructions, one when the reputation is known, and one when it's not, but it's offered to prove that the alleged victim acted in conformity with that reputation, which is, I need you to talk me through how you're doing that, or are you not using that?
No, I think it is relevant because the defense is that Kathy grabbed the knife in the house in Auburndale, and that fits with past instances where she pulled a gun on Collin, where she attacked Inaki with a baseball bat and said she was going to get a gun, where she pinned her then husband against the house with a car, that she stabbed her husband and burned him, and those were in front of Collin, and she has independent knowledge of those too. So those are the specific instances.
Judge, I have nothing further to elaborate on besides my objection in the hallway, and I object to anything that will be contrary to what Your Honor just read in the jury instructions, Your Honor. It might be it might be a question by question journey to see what, if anything, is admissible or relevant based upon the application of the question asked by Ms. Thornhill, the jury instruction differentiating between, as Your Honor pointed out, the reputation or things that the defendant has to have been present for, have personal knowledge of, and Ms. Deutman, depending on how narrow, or maybe I should say how wide her answers are going to be.
As far as her reputation, it's my understanding that her reputation within the family was for being dangerous and violent, and people were scared of what she might do at any given moment. So I was going to ask about both.
All right. While I understand the community for purposes of this type of reputation evidence may be narrower, you're still going to need to lay that predicate.
Sure.
This is a family of estrangement, after all, it seems. So
Because of her violence.
Well,
yeah.
But I don't know who's estranged from who else. So
Well, and
she needs to understand and know that family community.
okay.
So,
And even if somebody's not still a part of that community on this particular day, I mean, they don't.
I'm not suggesting it has to be at some
Okay.
particular instant in time, but I haven't heard a lot about her closeness with others who may share that in that reputation, or have knowledge of that reputation.
Okay. I will do my best. Is
And
this
we'll
a-
just take it question by question, as Mr. Levine suggests.
Okay.
Do you want to go ahead and just take our mid-morning recess?
That's what I was going to ask, if I could run faster.
Mr. Levine?
Yeah, that's fine, Judge.
All right, we'll take 10 minutes.